What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Oscar's Cozy Corner. Now, we are just a few weeks away from the launch of Disney Dreamlight Valley's next paid expansion, Wishblossom Ranch, coming on November 19th. Now, I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like things feel a little bit different this time around. They feel a little bit more mysterious. I'm not going to say there's not as much hype, because there does still feel like there's hype for Wishblossom Ranch. However, Storybook Vale just feels like it blew the community out of the water with the showcase last year. But I do think there's something very intriguing about what we've seen about Wishblossom Ranch, and I do have high hopes for its introduction, especially with those horse mounts. For today's video, I thought it would be fun to talk about the things that I'm most excited for based on what we've seen so far. I'm not going to be recapping everything because I've already done a breakdown of the showcase and everything we know about the DLC, which you can watch somewhere up here. But for this video, I thought I'd just share my opinion, share the things I'm personally most excited for. I will also be giving away a deluxe edition copy of Wishblossom Ranch through a gift card, so stay tuned through this video for information on how to enter that as we approach that final release date. But for now, let's get straight into it and let's talk a little bit more about Wishblossom Ranch. All right, as I just said in the intro, for me personally, I do feel like Wishblossom Ranch feels a little bit more mysterious, a little bit more unpredictable than what we saw with Storybook Vale and Eternity Isle previously. Don't ask me to elaborate, don't ask me to put my finger on it, because honestly, I've been racking my brain as to why I feel that way. The showcase gave us plenty of information, but there's still just that little bit of intrigue in the back of my head. Like, I don't think we know the full story here, and I'm not talking about a fifth character or anything like that. Mostly around the storyline itself, we know a vague overview of kind of restoring the ranch and getting rid of the decay, but I'm just interested to see where all that comes into play. I'm interested to see how the horses actually function. We know rough, sort of vague details about possible obstacle courses and things like that, so I do think there's a lot of unknowns still with Wishblossom Ranch, which makes it a little bit more exciting for me, I guess. The world design in itself looks a little bit more complex than what we've had previously. There's more bridges, there's more verticality, there's height, there's underpasses, there's gulches. Don't ask me to elaborate on that one. But I do feel like all of those things lead to more exploration potential, or just even general feeling of more exploration. You might not be getting any bigger space, you might not be getting more land, but just having those different vertical levels, having that sense of scale just really adds to that wonder of the world, I suppose. The character lineup is also very random, but in a good way. It's a very diverse lineup. It's a very tonally diverse lineup, especially with Snow White, Tinkerbell, Tigger, and Cruella. They are quite the mix of characters, especially when you throw in the Disney horses as well. Like I said, that's not a bad thing. I'm looking forward to it. I do hope that the storylines will be fun. I hope that the writing will be fun. And fingers crossed that some of the quests and things like that are less formulaic, because I do feel like we're falling into the same pattern of throw a party. You know what I mean. You know what I mean with the quests. I don't have to say any more about that. However, in general, this DLC does feel like Gameloft exploring a little bit more, trying some new things, finding their footing. I know that it's been a few years since the game came out, but this is a live service game, so they're always learning and listening to player feedback, which is a bonus. So I do have three main things that I'm excited for. We're going to go in order of excitement for them, starting off with biomes. Now, I love getting new biomes. I love getting new maps, areas to explore, aesthetics to draw from. I think that that's really important for the game. I think it's important to keep everything feeling fresh. And I do think that these upcoming biomes definitely fit that bill. Of course, we do have the Wishing Alps, which has been the main draw and the main focus in all of the marketing materials. For me, it's very Sound of Music energy, very that vibe. There's Mountain Meadows, there's a transition from winter to spring, which I think is an overarching theme of this DLC. Kind of that rebirth without explicitly calling it rebirth, because we are bringing the ranch back to life, getting rid of the decay, seeing those winter through spring themes very commonly in what we've seen so far. And then of course there's the rustic stables, there's the alpine architecture, and what feels like a really nice, calming, refreshing color palette, like pastels, greens, little bits of leftover snow. I just really like this biome from the offset, so I am quite excited to arrive here and explore a little bit more about it. Next up is Pixie Acres, and I do think that this one will be a fan favorite. It includes oversized flowers, gigantic insects. It's kind of a cross between Tinkerbell and Winnie the Pooh themed, so it seems as though with more spaces in that particular biome, we might get more fairy themed things, or we might get more Pooh themed things, We'll talk about that within the Gulch in just a second, about how there's two different aesthetics. But like I said, I do think that that pixie, that fairy aesthetic is something that the community really loves, and I think is going to be a big draw for a lot of people. I'm excited to see it personally just because it's much more vibrant than everything else we've seen. There's a lot of color going on, there's a lot of whimsy. It reminds me a lot of the Alice in Wonderland stuff and the Alice in Wonderland realm. So I think that's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm excited to see what sort of craftables we might get with this particular biome. And then finally, I have a love-hate relationship with this one, Glamour Gulch. The name is still not working for me, but we're going to do our best to roll with it. We're going to do our best to reclaim Gulch and make it feel like a verb and an adjective that we can use in a very endearing way. However, the biome itself is very different from everything that we've really seen so far across Dreamlight Valley. The closest is probably the Forgotten Lands, but it's just its own kind of style with that Cruella influence, with those sort of like deep reds and crimsons. And then you've also got the touches of like the particular sewing stuff and the actual couture stuff with the trees, etc. So it's an interesting biome. Thrown on top is all of the Victorian architecture that is brought into it. That's why I love it personally, because I am a big Victorian architecture fan. I'm a big fan of the Victorians in general. I think they were a fascinating group of people, so it's very much up my street, but it will remain to be seen how popular this one is because of how dark it kind of feels, unless there's an aspect or a quest where we kind of like brighten it up and bring it back to life. I'm kind of thinking when we return to the Lion King realm and turned it from night to day, something maybe along those lines, but it could just end up being a very dark biome in general, which it is what it is. I'm excited to see how this one pans out, especially with community reaction. There was one area of the Gulch that we did see that was very different to the other sections of it, which was the mining section. It had tracks, it had little mine carts and stuff like that. It was much more rocky and much more rugged than Glamour Gulch itself, or the name suggests at the very least. So I do think that inside of those biomes, we will be getting certain areas in them, kind of like Teapot Falls, kind of like the Statue's Shadow, that are themed again to something else. So that area is kind of like the mines. So I do think that that might be related to the Crystal Caverns, of course. And then it does make me think, are the other biomes going to have those kind of similar themes? So that's why I think about Pixie Acres maybe having some Tinkerbell influence in certain places. We also know about that big birthday cake that we don't really know much about at present. But I do think that we might see some more interesting layouts in those biomes this time. So for me personally, I love that all of the biomes have very distinctive moods. They did do something similar with the Storybook Vale. We did get the Bind, we got Metopia and Ever After. They had very distinct color palettes. But I do feel like these particular biomes in Wishblossom Ranch have very distinct identities, because I do feel like if you change the colors of the biomes in Storybook Vale, you wouldn't really know where you were. I just feel like in general, these biomes have been fleshed out a little bit more and have a little bit more personality to them, which is really nice. So in closing, this is a very visually diverse DLC, something I'm very much into as a graphic designer. I just love visuals. I think that Gameloft are doing a really good job with their visuals, and praise to the art directors, praise to all of the art workers involved in creating those biomes. Next up is horses and gameplay mechanics, because I do think that it's such a big change for the game. It is such a monumental, if you will, introduction of a new mechanic. So that is really important to note. Of course, it's not just the case of riding certain horses, it's all of the customization is not the right word, customization that we get alongside that, with the saddles, the reins, the color of them, the manes, all of that good stuff that we love to make things personalized. That is a real bonus. And of course, we've got everything else that comes with it, with the special abilities, the jumping, the door kicking, the watering, the digging, all of those fun things, alongside the Disney horses as well of Maximus, Khan, and Pegasus. Of course, this is the headline feature for this DLC. This is what most players are going to be excited about, and for good reason. If you're a horse girly, this one is definitely for you. I feel like this is right up your street. Of course, for me, I'm absolutely going to use it and I'm going to enjoy it. I'm probably going to love it. It's just not the main draw of this DLC in general for me. I really do appreciate the feature as something that's going to make the valley feel a little bit more alive, something new, some new exciting way to explore, to actually carry out our daily tasks. I think that that is a great addition, and it was very unexpected. I just think for me, part of what I love about Dreamlight Valley is not necessarily just the wandering around, it's not the questing, It's the decorating, it's the leaning into the creativity, it's the seeing what I can come up with. That's where my heart lies, which is why that is kind of the thing that I'm most excited for. And because of that, that thing is modular building kits. So the modular building kits are these large themed structures that are made from modular pieces that you can kind of craft and then join together to create these larger towns or these larger versions of these themed buildings. The best part for me is that they're going to be found in each biome. I know there's a little bit of unlocking to do to be able to actually get them, but each biome is going to come with its own modular building kit set. So it looks as though we're going to get like alpine chalets, we're getting stables, I believe in each biome, we're getting that Victorian aspect, those kind of Victorian facades, and then it also looks like we'll be getting some form of fairy cottage. Of course, as I said, these are designed to slot together, to make bigger builds, to make towns, large structures. I think this is going to be a game changer for decorators. And why it matters for decorators is that it's going to allow us to create these big structures without actually stitching together lots of little pieces and kind of like hodgepodging together something to be like, look, this is a building. We did start to see those kind of like bigger pieces and those modular kits introduced with the castle wall kit, and then we got a bunch of other wall kits. We recently got the greenhouse in the star path, so those are all steps in the right direction. For me, one thing I'm still really hoping for is roofs in some capacity for those walls. I don't know if that'll ever come, but I do think that these modular building kits kind of like open the door for more exploration with that in the future. The other thing that I really like about these, even though I don't know it yet, is I feel like these are probably going to count as one item on the item limit, which means you can have these really big, large structures with just one item. That's great for people with very over decorated valleys, or great if you're on Switch or console where you might not have the upper decorating limit. So that's already a bonus and a win in my book. I do hope that these building kits are adaptable outside of the biome that they come from. I do think that the Glamour Gulch ones and the Pixie Acre ones will be. They seem to be, from the very small glimpse that we got of them, the most adaptable and the most reusable. I think that those Glamour Gulch ones in particular, with those Victorian buildings, are going to be able to be used in multiple places, in multiple builds, which is exciting. Same for the Pixie Acre ones if it's all fairy themed, even though we only got one glimpse, I believe, at the fairy ones. I do think that it will bring in a different element, maybe a little bit more whimsical, a little bit more florally or grassy, something like that, which can be used across multiple builds. The one that I don't think will blend as well is the Alpine ones. So the Wishing Alps, I just think it's going to be very specific because it's got all of that kind of like Alpine style illustration on it. It's very pastel colored. So even though they look great in the biome, I do wonder if they're going to be adaptable outside of that. They might look good in somewhere like the Frosted Heights, but I just think for ease of use in builds and in other sorts of applications, the Glamour Gulch ones in particular are going to be very impressive. I can already see that working really well in the plaza. I am excited to see how blueprint hunting works for these particular modular pieces. We know that it's slightly different this time around. It's not so much grinding on the crafting table, as far as I'm aware from what we got told in the showcase. I believe when we pick up those blueprints, we can actually craft or repair them on the spot, and then it unlocks, so we don't have to always have a crafting table within distance or within kind of walking reach, which is really nice for the actual flow of the game. It feels more exploratory and inviting. I do also think it's just a little signal that Gameloft is still listening to player feedback. They know that this is a decorating game. That's why most of the focus has been on the premium shop recently for the past couple of months, if not years. They do also know that there is a limit to how much people can decorate, the fact that there is a limit and stuff like that. So I do think that they are trying to find ways to introduce more decorating options and flexibility. We've already seen it a few times with the landscaping items, with those big kind of like multi-landscape pieces just counting as one item. So this is definitely the way to go, at least for me as a decorator and someone who loves to decorate. So on the whole, I do think that those building kits are the thing that I'm most excited for. I know that that might seem like a little small piece of the pie, but for me, I just think that it opens up a lot of doors and a lot of possibilities, really depending on how many pieces we get in those modular kits. And I also think it opens the door, as is usually the case with Gameloft, to premium shop versions of these kits going forward, not coming forward. We could see different IPs, we could see themed ones, we could see Coco ones, we could see Toy Story ones, just sets or building sets that would come to the premium shop, maybe like a dream bundle, maybe like a signature bundle that has a bunch of items in it. Doesn't need to have quests, doesn't need to have dream styles, but I do think that those modular building kits would sell pretty well. Of course, the community is the most creative bunch of people that I have ever met, and you continue to amaze me with the things that you come up with building and with decorating. But talking about community, that is exactly what I want to give back to you today. I want to give you a copy of Wishblossom Ranch, the deluxe edition, including Sven and the other bonus items. Think of this as a thank you from me to you for supporting me and the channel over this past year. It has been an absolute pleasure getting to know so many of you, and I appreciate every single one of you for the consistent support that you have shown me. Entering this giveaway is really, really simple. All you need to do is let me know down in the comments below what you are most looking forward to with Wishblossom Ranch. Is it the modular building kits like me? Is it the horses, or is it something else entirely? Whatever it is, let me know down below, and that will serve as your entry into the draw, which we will draw during release week. As I said, the prize is a deluxe edition copy of Wishblossom Ranch. We don't know how much it's going to cost yet. They've not given us the price. Whatever it is, you will get a gift card to cover that cost in your local currency. It is open to everyone, so it doesn't matter where you are in the world. Feel free to enter. It is just a small way of me saying thank you for your support over the past year. All right, gang, that is it for this video. I do hope that you enjoyed that little look at my opinions. I don't usually say that. It's usually some sort of build, but I hope you enjoyed hearing my opinions, what I think. As I said, let me know what you think down in the comments below. I stick by this DLC feeling very different. There's more intrigue, more mystery, and possibly more creativity, which we love to see. I really do appreciate the ambition that Gameloft have gone for with this expansion. I do think that it is a step in the right direction. I think it's a step in keeping the game fresh. So kudos to Gameloft for trying to pull this off. Let's see if they do in fact pull it off. I'm sure that they will. With all of that being said, I am going to leave it there for today. And as always, I will catch you in the next one. And I will, of course, see you in the valley. And then Wishblossom Ranch.